Hi everybody, this is Lou from Real Estate HQ. There are property managers and there are property managers. Now, for several weeks, I have been dealing with a matter that involves air conditioning failures, water ingress, concealed drainage systems. A lot of these are around body corporate disputes, and there's been a lot of conflicting trade reports. Now, an invoice has just come in and it just does not align with the evidence that I am aware of on site. But here is the important part. A lot of agents will simply just forward the invoice to the owner and tell them to pay it, and then they'll move on. Now, for me, that is not property management, that is administration. Real property management means asking those really difficult questions and not necessarily being the most popular person in the eyes of the trade. I need to review those evidence, and remember, everything is about evidence. You need to understand your building, and generally you need to apply a lot of common sense because you are in a position where you need to protect your client's interests even when it becomes technically complex and politically uncomfortable. Now, in this particular case, I had physically attended the property quite a number of times, and I did review my videos. And yes, I do take a lot of videos. I've ascertained those drainage paths, where the pipework layouts are, the floor plans, the trade findings, and lined it all up with a lot of body corporate correspondence. And after all of that, I did get a final plumbing invoice and report that just does not align with the actual leak location, the visible pipework configuration, or the infrastructure layout that I had viewed while I was on site. So yes, I do have to question. Not because I want to create conflict, not because I enjoy making trades uncomfortable, but because it is my obligation to my client. Because under Queensland legislation and agency obligations, a property manager must always act in the best interest of their client, exercise due care, exercise skill, and exercise diligence. And that means, as property agents, we cannot simply accept every contractor explanation at face value, especially when the infrastructure is unclear. Multiple trades disagree about how to resolve the issue, and the owner could be paying for works that are related to a broader building defect that belongs to the body corporate, which is what I suspect in this case. And this is where experience does matter, because once you start dealing with strata buildings, concealed services, waterproofing, drainage stacks inside condensate systems, there are insurance risks as well as defect responsibility, and not necessarily having to put your hand up and say that your owner has to pay. This becomes a completely different level of property management. This is no longer book a plumber and send an invoice. It becomes investigation, documentation, advocacy, risk management, and protecting the owner's legal right and financial position, as well as the tenant's right, Section 185 obligations from the owner. Now, most property managers will say this is outside their scope of services, and I do agree to a certain extent, but I am not like most property managers. I know my stuff, and I will always go over and above, because the reality is sometimes asking those hard questions won't make me popular. But owners don't hire me to be popular. They hire me to protect their interest. And that is the difference between someone who manages rent and someone who actually genuinely manages property properly. If you have hard to answer questions, don't stay in the dark. Reach out to me. My name is Lou Brasher. My number is 0425 225678. Have a lovely day. Bye.